are live. Welcome to Glamz Closet, guys. Hello, everybody. Hello. Let me move this artwork. I just noticed it's kind of hello and good morning. It's the middle of the night here in Missouri. As you can see above my head, we've had a water leak with these storms, so we're working on repairing that. But while we're working on that, we're also kind of hunkered down. You know, it's January, it's cold, it's awful outside. So I thought I would do something that hopefully will be fun for some of you. What I'd like to do is a reselling challenge, and not just a regular reselling challenge. What I want to do is eventually create a cookbook with all of the different recipes that we have from this community. We have a wonderful, wide-ranging community, all sorts of different people cooking at all sorts of different levels, family recipes that just go back forever and ever. And I really, really love to take advantage of that. Now, as you may have heard, this is my timer going off on my stove, so I'll be right back. And that means my cabbage is ready. So let's go ahead and get started with the recipe that I have. It's listed below. It's a GLAM-FAM recipe that my parents would feed us. I mean, they had 4 kids to feed and not a lot of money. So they would feed us this, and it was rich in vitamins and minerals and just very hearty and delicious in the wintertime. And even as kids, we would eat this. I would eat it cold, but that's not how we do. So we start with about a half a head of cabbage, and you cut it up into squares, about an inch square, but there's no really perfect way to do it or not do it. And you put that down into the bottom of a stock pot, and just barely cover it with water. And we want to bring that to a boil and let it boil for about 30 minutes or until the cabbage gets nice and tender. We don't want it sloppy and falling apart, but we do want it tender, definitely. Once your cabbage is boiled, and that's what that timer was, I have the boiled cabbage on the stove, making my house, by the way, smell a little cabbagey, but we'll get past that. Then I add in one bag, about a 12-ounce bag of frozen mixed vegetables. These are so cheap, guys, at Aldi's, even at like regular grocery stores they are. So I'm going to cut this open and add it to my pot. Which is on the stove. And then I add usually about 3/4 of this. I picked up the vegetable juice, but you can do this with like a tomato juice too. You can do it with a can of tomato juice, which is super, super cheap at Aldi or at Walmart. So you get the can of tomato juice and just add it to taste. Like I said, I usually add about 3/4 of the can. Good morning, Kathy. It's good to see you. You're up and cooking with me, huh? So I'm going to add about 3/4 of this vegetable juice to that pot as well. Because my goal really is that I want a really healthy, vitamin-rich base of my soup. And so for that, I'm also adding in a can of stewed tomatoes. I really love the stewed tomatoes. And surprisingly, this actually ends up being, it seems a little odd to add these things together, but it ends up being like the best vegetable beef soup. So I have a can of generic stewed tomatoes, just diced tomatoes. And I open that up, and it doesn't matter. Again, the sizes really don't matter that much. Once you're turning it into soup, it's going to be, 50% liquid anyway. But it is going to have those nice vitamins in it. So you can add, you can double the recipe, make it larger. And I'm going to add the whole can can whip the juice to that stock pot. Now what we want to do now is just bring that back to a boil. And I've got a little bit of vegetable juice left over, so I'll probably make a Bloody Mary out of that tomorrow. So we just want to let that boil, bring it back to a boil. Oh my goodness, I almost forgot one of the most important things. Beef bouillon. And again, this is just the generic store brand. I usually add 3 beef bouillon cubes. Now, if you're vegetarians, please skip that part and also skip the meat part. It's still a good soup. If you're a vegetarian, you can add noodles and things like that. But I took some medicine for a very, very bad headache that I had earlier, about 30 minutes ago. Laid down in the dark, and I couldn't sleep because I just kept thinking, I need to do this creative thing. I need to do this creative thing. And so I got back up, and by the time I forced myself back out of bed, my headache was gone. So I feel much, much better. Good morning, Patrick Murphy. It's nice to see you. And I am sending out this challenge to Patrick Murphy. I'm sending it out to Kathy Wood. I'm sending it out to Johnny. I'm sending it out to the 2 old guys and Angry Otter. I'm sending it out to Veronica Mitka. I'm sending it out to everybody in the reselling community. Randy, Brenda, everybody, all the Marys, all the Ashleys. And I'm challenging you to do a video with your reselling, with your reselling channel about maybe a family recipe that you have, or something that you really enjoy making, something that, you know, is an economical choice. I really love that. I love saving money because you can thrift more than. And I have 3 of these bouillon cubes that I just opened up. And I dot those in there, and I do that because I like the taste of the bouillon cube, like that, just that little bit of extra beef flavor. Now I'm going to stir this pot just once, and then let all of that come to a boil again. Once it's come to a boil, I'm going to put my meat in. And so let me pull out my meat from the fridge. My husband and I got some bulk meat that we bought. So this, I have stew meat, and I'm going to chop it down just a little bit smaller. My little miniature chopping board. I've got 3 big ones down below, but I try not to overdo it with those. Oh, still a little frozen, I see. So when we butchered the meat that we got, and we got some kind of large slabs of meat, we just had some tips and ends and things like that, and we thought that would make perfect stew meat. And I made pretty large stew meat pieces for the most part. Oh no, actually I did cut them down to regular size. So lucky for me, they're pretty much regular stew meat size, right? So really all I have to do is just insert those in the boiling water. Now, what we're going to do though is I'm going to let the boiling hot soup, I'm going to let that actually cook the stew meat. So I have about 1 pound of stew meat. If you don't like meat, don't add meat. It just looks yellower than it is in person. It's actually quite red in person. If you don't like meat, don't add the meat. If you want more meat, add more meat. There's no right or wrong answer here. Honestly, it's all to taste. If you decide that maybe you have 1/2 pound of stew meat, or maybe you have, a steak that's going to go bad and you want to cut that up, or, a flank steak or a tri-steak. Those are usually the cheaper cuts, and you can totally use those. What we do is we add those in once everything comes back to a boil, and it cooks that meat, and that way That way you're not overcooking the meat and making it not tender anymore. So it keeps the meat, it does cook the meat through, but it keeps it tender. So once that is back to a boil, and we are already almost there. We're already almost there. So once that's back to a boil, I'm going to add my meat. Now, while we're talking about my meat, I'm joking. I actually, my dad used to make homemade bread, and he would serve homemade bread with it. So you can imagine like a big hunk of homemade bread smothered with butter. And they always got real butter. They always got real butter from the food bank, or the margarine, and they would just slather that with like country crock or something back when it was cheap. And it would melt all over that bread, and you would take a big bite of a hunk of like fragrant homemade fresh bread from the oven, and then a giant bite of soup, and it was just absolutely amazing. It's a recipe that I have passed down to my daughters-in-law. And it's also a recipe that my sister has, that my brother has. It's just something that we make, just something that we make as our family. So it's something that is really, really special in my family. Let's see. I'm almost to a boil on that stove. So here is my challenge. Here's my challenge. Make a video. If you're a reseller and you have a YouTube channel, make a video. Show us one of your family's recipes. Maybe share something with us that's both cheap and fun to make, or share something with us that is a really treasured recipe in your family. I would love to eventually create a cookbook and use that to just kind of create a stronger bond in the community. Give people bragging rights too. It's not like home cooking is difficult, but it is a lot of work. It is a lot of work. And I think people take incredible pride, as they should, in bringing something delicious and healthy or unhealthy. I kind of like the unhealthy stuff too. Bringing something delicious to the table that is made with love. So let me go ahead and add this meat back into the stock pot now that it is boiling. And I'm just going to slide that in there, and I'm going to give it a good stir so that the meat gets under the water, and so that all those juices become a part of that stew. And y'all, that is about it. After you add the meat, you turn up the heat underneath the stock pot, because the soup will continue to cook it. Once that is all incorporated, I'm going to add pepper and salt to taste. I like to add just a little bit of celery salt with it too. But just be careful. Just remember that when you're adding the salt, you have already added 3 beef bouillon cubes. So you want to be careful and add the salt a little bit at a time. Taste it. A little bit at a time. Taste it. And what happens is that the cabbage is tangy. The tomatoes kind of help with that tanginess, but they also kind of change the flavor of the cabbage a little bit. The vegetables just incorporate, beautifully, because they're just frozen mixed vegetables, the cheapy stuff. And then the beef gets tender, and it really is a very hearty, midwinter soup that can feed a large family and even friends. If you have a large family or friends, if you have a large gathering, it's one of those options that is pretty much. I've never had anybody not like this soup. I've never had anybody not like it. There's something about the taste of it. It's just it's toothsome. So I'm going to go have some soup now, but I challenge you This is Glamz Closet challenging the entire reselling community, every single reseller from Buffalo Picker to DIY to DI middleman, from Collect with Kelly, to, gosh, I'm trying to think of everybody. Land Shark Picker, Dory down in Louisiana. I bet you got some good recipes, and I know Johnny does. So all y'all resellers, I will catch you on the flip side, but I sincerely hope that you enjoy having a wonderful, wonderful evening and a wonderful morning the next morning. And just to show you what's in the pot, what the pot looks like, they bring this over and try not to steam you. Let's close this video out with a nice little view of the pot. That is my pot of soup. And I can guarantee I'm going to enjoy every single bit of it. No matter where you go, no matter what soup you're serving in your home, just know, don't you ever forget, Glam loves you.